My name is Gary Wood. I am an assistant professor at the university, and I'm also a course director for the undergraduate automotive engineering course here at the university. So that covers the B-Eng and the M-Eng course. What did you want to be when you grew up? So engineering's always been a part of me. My dad's an engineer, so very much surrounded by engineering and pulling bits apart, mending things, fixing stuff. So it's always been something that's been completely a part of my life all the way through. So my dad's got his own sort of engineering company in the back garden, believe it or not, so shed built up, that kind of thing. And so it was always around me, so I was always in there learning how to do all the machinery, doing all the bits and pieces, learning to design stuff from a very young age. So it was kind of in my blood and in my DNA all the way through. What inspired you to teach your subject? So I got into teaching by chance more than anything. I went through my academic kind of career in terms of studying. So I did an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. I then did a master's degree. And during that, I was given the opportunity to actually do a PhD. And it's during that my director of studies, who obviously works at the university, was very involved in teaching, got me involved into it, and actually I quite enjoyed it. And it was the idea that you can actually impart that knowledge that you've got, help other people to understand, and obviously kind of create that next generation of engineers that really kind of made me think, yeah, actually I want to be a part of this. What's your experience in your field? So I look after the automotive engineering course. My background is a vehicle dynamicist, so I'm interested in the way in which vehicle moves. So that's understanding how we go forward, back, round corners, bouncing up and down. And that comes from my PhD. So I started doing my PhD working on tyres, predominantly aircraft tyres to start off with, and that was looking at how we can model them, how we can generate computer simulations so that we can understand and predict what's happening, basically. And then trying to take that and apply that in the real world as well, so that we can kind of go full circle from the virtual to the real world. So my background then became in tyres, and then through my director's of studies learning, essentially through the teaching domain, I started to get involved in teaching some of that stuff. So teaching about tyre mechanics, teaching about multi-body dynamics as well, so how we can do virtual simulations. What do you love most about teaching? The biggest thing is actually when you get students that have that passion, that bug for the kind of the subject as well, and you just want them to keep learning and understand that passion that you have for it. You know, we do these kind of things because we enjoy the subject. We really kind of want to spend time delving into all of the different nuances around it. And when you obviously get the students involved in that, you want to impart that onto them so that they're constantly kind of curious, wanting to understand that next thing, and sort of not having that kind of this is good enough. It's always about trying to make it that next step. What can we do better? How can we kind of push things forward? So it's imparting and allowing students to understand, you know, where the boundaries are, and giving them the skills to hopefully, you know, obviously develop that stuff going forward as well, and giving them that kind of sense of purpose for the rest of their careers. What's the biggest myth about your subject? I suppose one of the biggest myths is that we kind of do know all the answers to a certain degree. We have quite a big component in most vehicles that causes not so much a problem, but certainly some interesting things, which is the human. Everybody's different. Everybody likes different things, as you know, we all kind of know. So trying to make vehicles so that they work in a way that can meet everybody's expectations is one of the biggest challenges. You cannot make one car that fits everybody's wants and needs. What's your teaching style? Oh, good question. So I do try to obviously be as engaging as possible. So it's definitely not a stand and just talk at people for an hour and end. The way in which I like to try and teach is through discussion, through getting ideas, trying to understand what the students know. So that can only be done by posing questions, giving them kind of challenges, giving them scenarios, case studies, thinking about what's going on, and then seeing what they actually understand or know themselves. And that allows us to kind of break down some of those misconceptions, or, you know, identify where gaps in knowledge are. Do your students just sit in lectures all day? No. So obviously lecturing is an important part. It is a way in which we have to deliver some information across. But you certainly, you know, hopefully most of the time won't be sat there for hours hours on end just listen to somebody talk. As I said, part of that is instilling knowledge, so part of that would also be doing some examples, looking at case studies. So that will be doing some calculations in class, that will be looking at examples, designing something, thinking about a solution for those kind of elements. And then in certain modules that we teach as well, there's then an array of potential labs that you would be doing as well. So sciences, you'd be going into the labs, you'd be doing some fluids labs, so seeing how fluids flow through structures and understanding what's going on. Structures labs, how they vibrate, this kind of stuff, so that we can relate that practical stuff with then what's actually going on in the real world, and that's really quite important. What is your favourite course module and why? I think nowadays one of the key areas, apart from my own subject, which is the vehicle dynamics, would be the powertrain. So as an industry, as a subject, it's going through a revolution in terms of how we're migrating towards the electric powertrain. So we have a couple of modules from the powertrain side of things that looks at the kind of electric architectures and where that's going through, whether that is how we can improve ICE engines in terms of making sure that they can kind of last, because some parts the world will need that for a lot longer than perhaps we will. We also need to look at hybrids, that interim, and then the full electric, and looking at all those capabilities. And again, it goes back to kind of understanding where the need is at different points, and that's not just individual, it's also looking around the world at what's going on. So I think from a course development point, that really is a kind of a key area. And so one of the kind of the better modules in there in terms of really bringing that home nowadays. As a student, I'm worried about the academic workload. Should I be? We obviously design modules such that there is a expectation of how many kind of hours that module will deliver. It then comes down to how much time students also want to to put in there, and obviously we recognise nowadays that students have to balance that against potentially work-life kind of situations. So I think it's important as well that we do have the module teams, the support teams that are there. We give students a timeline so when all your assessments are in. So you've got a pattern of knowing when the peaks and troughs would be in a semester. So it's then about kind of working through that to try and make sure that, we get there. So we're there to support as much as possible as well. What's your favourite piece of kit you teach with? So currently I am working on a new driving simulator that we've got. So I'm part of a team that's working with that to look at how we can expand in terms of tracks, vehicles, setups, and also integrate that further into our courses. So it's not just a piece of equipment that sits there. It's important that students get access to that as well. So that's definitely my favourite piece of kit. So we get to have a little bit of fun on that one, definitely. What difference do you think your subject area makes to the world? At the moment, it's obviously a very prevalent subject in terms of sustainability, in terms of what's going on with the kind of the pollution in the world, particularly through obviously global warming, also through air pollution. And so as a subject, we obviously have to look at that and constantly look to see how can we make things better, how can we improve things. And that's obviously working hand in hand with industry as well. So we have to work alongside industry. We've got to keep pace with industry to make sure we are delivering obviously engineers that are going to be proficient going into that world. What has your most successful student gone on to do? Well, I think they're all successful in their own right. So I think everybody's got to find their path, and that's, different for everybody. I didn't expect to become a teacher, in terms of what I was doing. I was fully expecting to go into industry and go off and do something. So I think success is something that comes through of, right, what is your passion? What is your the thing you enjoy the most, and if you can come out the other end of that and be doing that at the end, then it's a success. But we've got students all over the place. So we've got them at Jaguar, we've got them at Tata, Nissan. So there's lots of hubs of automotive kind of companies in the UK where we get students that will go to, but they do go to lots and lots of different places. What would your advice to an 18-year-old self when picking a degree? I think one of the most important things is finding something that you enjoy. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, then you're going to kind of struggle really getting your mind into wanting to do it. Now that's not to say that you're going to enjoy every subject within engineering. So for example, thermodynamics. I hate thermodynamics. That's why I became a vehicle dynamicist. So I get to understand the way things move. But fluids and all that kind of stuff, I absolutely hated it. But you kind of have to learn that there are going to be some things that aren't always going to be the best. But if by and large you enjoy the most of it, then that's really the most important thing. If you enjoy what you do and actually want to get up and get involved with it, that should be the kind of the lead into the subject that you want to do at university.